You were told this was real, that the world you see, the body you wear, the life you live, is solid, dependable, and grounded in truth. But what if it's not? What if this entire existence is more like a dream, and you've been sleepwalking through it? Because ancient wisdom across the ages whispered a secret, one so dangerous it was buried beneath empires, scriptures, and science. This life is Maya. Not illusion in the sense of fake, but illusion in the sense of incomplete. A mask, a simulation, a veil. And those who pierced it, they didn't just wake up. They remembered something the world made them forget. But before we reveal what Maya really is, you need to understand how it was designed to keep you from asking the right questions. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And by the end of this video, you'll realize you were never just living a life. You were navigating a dream. Keep watching. The truth behind Maya isn't just spiritual, it's cosmic, and it was always meant to find you. You thought waking up meant opening your eyes. But what if opening your eyes is how the dream begins? From the moment you were born, the world around you whispered one message. This is real. This is all there is. But what if that voice was part of the illusion? What if reality, as you've been taught, is the deepest sleep of all? The ancient seers didn't see the world the way we do. To them, the senses were gates, not guarantees. What you touch, what you see, what you hear, these were not confirmations of truth, but veils to be lifted. Because in every tradition that remembered, there was a warning. This life is not what it seems, not because it's meaningless, but because it's layered. Like a dream within a dream. The Upanishads, the ancient scriptures of India, speak of Maya, a Sanskrit word that doesn't mean illusion in the Western sense, but something more subtle. Maya is the power that makes the infinite appear as the finite. It is the shimmering veil that gives form to the formless, making the one appear as many. And in doing so, gives birth to this dream we call the world. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it says, Tattvam asi. Thou art that. But how can you remember what you are when you're busy believing what you see? Maya doesn't lie. It simply hides. It hides the source behind the surface. It cloaks the eternal in the temporary. And the most powerful illusion, that you are separate, that you are small, that you are only this. Modern quantum physics, echoing the mystics, now tells us particles are probabilities. Matter is energy in disguise. The observer affects the observed, and the universe isn't solid. It's responsive, entangled, aware. But here's the part no textbook will tell you. If the universe is a dream, then who is the dreamer? You've been taught to look outward for answers, to measure, to compare, to define. But waking up doesn't mean analyzing the dream. It means stepping out of it. And that only happens from within. Because the dream doesn't end when your alarm clock rings. The real alarm is spiritual. It's that moment when something inside you says, there must be more than this. And that voice, that holy discomfort, is the soul remembering what it knew before the veil fell. So, if you feel the stir of something ancient inside you, if this world has always felt too flat, too scripted, too mechanical, you're not crazy, you're not lost, you're just beginning to wake up. And that's where the true story begins. You've heard the word, Maya. It's been translated, misused and misunderstood for centuries. Most call it illusion. But illusion implies trickery, a lie, something false meant to deceive. And that's not what the ancient sages meant. To understand Maya, you have to feel it, not just define it. In Sanskrit, Maya comes from the root ma, meaning to measure or to limit. It's not simply an illusion. It's the sacred act of making the infinite appear finite. It is the divine artist, shaping the formless into form, the eternal into the temporal, the one into the many. Maya is not a mistake. It's not the enemy. It is the stage upon which consciousness plays. In the Advaita Vedanta tradition, the seers say that Brahman, the Absolute, is the only truth. Everything else is Maya, not because it's false, but because it's fleeting, because it doesn't last. This chair, this name, this body, this story, they rise and fall like waves, but the ocean remains. Maya is the wave. Consciousness is the water. And here's the mystery. Maya is not bad. It's sacred, because without it, there could be no experience, no article, no birth, no story to tell. But when you forget the ocean, when you think you are only the wave, that's when Maya becomes suffering. Because when the part forgets it's part of the whole, when the dreamer identifies with the dream, when the soul gets lost in the screen, Maya becomes bondage. The Bhagavad Gita calls Maya divine. Daivi hyesha gunamaya mama maya duratyaya. This divine illusion of mine, composed of the three gunas, is difficult to overcome. But then Krishna offers the key. But those who surrender unto me cross over it. It's not about rejecting the world. It's about remembering the source behind it. It's about moving from identification to realization. Maya isn't a prison. It's a mirror. And the moment you stop trying to break it and start seeing through it, the reflection changes. This isn't just philosophy. It's the framework behind every mystical path. The Gnostics called it the veil of Sophia. The Buddhists called it samsara. Even modern simulation theory echoes this truth, that what we're seeing is a projection, an interface, not the source itself. And yet, within the veil is a code, a rhythm, a pattern. And when you begin to see that pattern, when you trace it back to its origin, you don't escape Maya. You transcend it, because Maya was never the problem. For the awakened, Maya becomes the path home. You didn't choose the veil, you were born into it, not as punishment, but as part of a sacred forgetting. A soul entering form must first pass through layers of silence, of sensation, of story. From the first breath, you inherited more than a body. You inherited a lens, a way of seeing the world that was already shaped by others. Your name, your culture, your language, your beliefs. You were told what things are, that a tree is a tree, that blue is blue, that money is value, that time is linear. But no one told you that all of it was interpretation. The moment your eyes opened, you were fed symbols, and the mind, so hungry to make sense of it all, devoured the script, and with every word the world narrowed. But perception is not passive. It is a choice, a co-creation. And in Maya, perception is the brush, and reality is the canvas. Yet by the time you were 5 years old, your subconscious was already etched, conditioned, wired to filter experience through fear or desire, reward or rejection. You didn't see what was. You saw what you were taught to see. And that veil, it didn't come from the divine. It came from survival, from history, from systems designed to keep you asleep. The Vedas speak of 3 layers of Maya. Tamas, the darkness of ignorance. Rajas, the fire of distraction, sattva, the clarity of purity, and most souls get stuck in the first two, not because they are weak, but because the veil is dense and heavy and ancient. The mystics call this the anava mala, the illusion of separation, the belief that you are just this body, just this thought, just this timeline. But the truth is, you were never just this name, never just this flesh. You were and always are awareness itself, watching the dream unfold. And yet, without the veil, there could be no journey, no forgetting, no remembering, no return. So the veil isn't your enemy, it is the teacher. It shows you what you are not, so that one day you can remember what you are. And on that day, when the veil begins to lift, the world doesn't vanish, it becomes sacred, because you finally see, not with the eyes of the body, but with the eye of the soul. And in that seeing, Maya becomes the portal, not the prison. The soul forgets, not by mistake, not as punishment, but by design, because in the realm of form, forgetting is part of the sacred game. You are not here to memorize truth. You are here to rediscover it. When the soul enters the body, it must pass through the veil of Maya, that shimmering mirage between spirit and matter, between eternity and time. It forgets its origin. It forgets its light. It even forgets its name beyond all names. This forgetting is not a flaw. It is a sacred pause, a suspension, a silence before the song. Because only in that silence can the music of awakening truly be heard. In ancient Hindu cosmology, this act of forgetting is known as Lila, the divine play, a game in which consciousness hides itself in order to find itself again, where God becomes the seeker, the questioner, the wanderer. And the beauty of the game is that you never really lost anything. You only agreed to remember it slowly, layer by layer, pain by pain, wonder by wonder. The soul forgets because remembering is the most powerful act in the universe. It is not passive, it is resurrection. And each glimpse of truth you reclaim echoes through the entire field of consciousness. But here's the paradox. You had to fall asleep to truly awaken. You had to walk through the dark to recognize the light. You had to believe you were separate, to feel the gravity of reunion. That's why the mystics have always spoken in riddles, why their teachings seem upside down, because what looks like loss is preparation, and what feels like death is often birth in disguise. The Gnostic texts say that the soul enters a body with a cry, because it knows it must forget. But they also say the cry isn't fear, it's agreement, a vow, a whisper to the cosmos that says, I will go in, I will forget, and when the time is right, I will wake up. That time is now, and waking up is not about acquiring something new. It's about peeling away what was never you. The soul never loses its light. It only dims it to play the part. But in every ache, every curiosity, every sacred longing, the memory stirs. And when it stirs, the game begins to end. Not with a conclusion, but with a homecoming. Because the real reward isn't knowledge, it's remembrance. The moment you know again what you've always been, the eternal player, the divine dreamer, the one who forgot on purpose. You were taught to see the world as solid, as fixed, as something that happens to you. But what if it's not a wall at all? What if it's a mirror? A living, breathing reflection of your own consciousness, responding to your beliefs, your fears, your thoughts, and your soul's unspoken longings. This is the deeper truth of Maya. It doesn't trap you, it teaches you. It's not an obstacle, It's an oracle, and it speaks your name through reflection. In the ancient Vedas, Maya is not simply illusion. It's projection, a divine screen onto which your inner world is cast. So when you experience betrayal, perhaps it's not just an external event. Perhaps it's a mirror for the parts of you still afraid to trust. When you feel abandoned, maybe it's not the world turning away, but your own sacred self still waiting to be claimed. The yogis understood this. They didn't try to fight Maya. They studied her. They observed how the outer world echoed the inner world with surgical precision. They saw how judgment hardened the world, how compassion softened it, how fear distorted it, and how love brought it into balance. It's not always comfortable to accept, but the world is showing you, not to shame you, but to wake you, to show you the blind spots you couldn't see from within, to expose the program still looping beneath awareness, to call you, again and again, back into alignment. Even the painful mirrors are sacred. Even the shadows carry truth. Because Maya's not here to punish you. She's here to polish you, to sand down the rough edges, to strip away the masks, to reflect with perfect neutrality what still asks to be healed. And when you begin to see that, everything shifts. You stop blaming, you start observing, you stop reacting, you start reflecting. And in that moment, the dream begins to shimmer. Not because it's over, but because you're no longer trapped in it. You're now conscious in it. This is the power of recognizing Maya as mirror. She shows you what you need to see until you no longer need the lesson. Then the image changes because you changed. So the question isn't, why is the world like this? The question is, what in me is being shown through this reflection? The more you ask that, the more you remember that life was never blocking you. It was becoming you. And that Maya was never the enemy. She was the mirror through which the divine caught a glimpse of itself. Right here, right now, through your eyes. There's a presence behind the curtain. Not a villain, not a god, but an architect. In the Vedas, Maya is not simply illusion. She is a divine force, a power of Shakti, a cosmic painter entrusted with the brushstrokes of reality. But what if this reality is not ultimate? What if it's a simulation so intricate you forgot it was a simulation? Ancient seers understood something modern science is just beginning to catch up with. That reality bends to observation, that matter dances to mind, and that consciousness is not inside the world. The world is inside consciousness. The Rig Veda speaks of the gods shaping the world through Maya, not as deception, but as creative power. In their hymns, it was Indra, the king of the gods, who used Maya to shape the heavens and earth. But there was a warning beneath the praise. He who forgets that Maya is a tool becomes a prisoner of the play. And in Gnosticism, there is a different architect, the demiurge, a being who crafted this world, yes, but out of ignorance. He believed himself to be the ultimate creator, unaware of the true source beyond. So he fashioned a world of form, structure, division, and called it complete. Sound familiar? The Gnostics didn't say the world was evil. They said it was incomplete. A sandbox of symbols, a stage for souls to remember they are actors, not their costumes. This isn't far from what physicist David Bohm described. He called the visible world the explicate order, but said it arises from a hidden, undivided whole, the implicate order. In other words, the dream emerges from a deeper mind. In the Matrix, it's code. In the Vedas, is divine play. In the Gospel of Thomas, it's the spark of God asleep in matter. But in all of them, it's the same whisper. This isn't it. This is not the end. This is the veil. You came here knowing you'd forget. You came here knowing you'd believe the illusion. For a while. And the architect, whether divine or distorted, its role was never to imprison you. It was to reflect you, to mirror your unconscious, to test your fire, because the soul doesn't grow in still waters. It grows in storms. And Maya is the storm, disguised as scenery. So the next time you look around and think this world is solid, fixed, or final, ask yourself, what if the illusion was never meant to fool you, but to wake you? And what if the architect isn't against you, but waiting for you to remember you helped design the game? Let that sink in. You helped build the veil, so you could remember how to tear it. You were taught that matter is solid, that the table is a table, the wall is a wall, that what you see is what exists. But what if it never was? What if the most stable thing you know isn't stable at all? The mystics said it first. Thousands of years before microscopes, they closed their eyes, stilled their breath, and whispered, everything is vibration. And now, modern science is catching up to what ancient sages knew by direct experience. Quantum physics has pulled back the curtain, and what it found isn't solid at all. At the smallest scale of existence, matter disappears into probabilities. Particles become waves, waves become information, and reality becomes relational. What you call solid is mostly space. Atoms are over 99.9% empty. The nucleus, tiny, the electrons, dancing, and between them, just space and spin and rhythm. So how does a world of emptiness feel so heavy, so real? Because perception is not passive, it's participatory. When you observe a particle, it chooses a position. When you look, it collapses the wave into form. That's not just science, that's sorcery. And you're doing it every second. The Upanishads called it Namarupa, name and form. The idea that everything you perceive is filtered through language, belief, and habit. That nothing is anything until you name it, frame it, and believe it into shape. The Buddha said, all compounded things are like a dream, a phantom, a bubble, a shadow. Not to depress you, but to liberate you. Because once you realize that matter is not the anchor, but the illusion, you stop treating the world like a prison, and you start seeing it as a projection. Your mind, your belief, your vibration. These are the real architects, and the world is the echo. Nikola Tesla once said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Not bricks and blood, not skin and steel, but waves, pulses, sacred oscillations. You're not walking through a world of things. You're swimming in a sea of frequencies, and your consciousness is the tuning fork. When the sages chanted mantras, they weren't singing poetry. They were adjusting reality. When shamans drummed, they weren't making music. They were shifting worlds, because they knew something we forgot. The world responds to rhythm, to tone, to intention. And if matter is vibration, then so are you, so are your thoughts, so is your breath, so is your presence. And that means the veil of Maya isn't made of stone, it's made of sound, and it can be sung open. Let that be your remembering. You don't need to break through the illusion. You need to harmonize with the truth beneath it. Because once you align with the frequency of reality, the dream starts to dissolve. The mirror lies, not because it shows you nothing, but because it shows you something too small. A nose, a face, a skin tone, a body, and somewhere along the way, you believed that was you. But the body is not who you are. It's the costume, the vessel, the avatar of a dreamer wandering through form. Maya loves the body, because if you believe you are the body, then you'll fight to preserve it, compete to decorate it, fear to lose it, and forget what's inside of it. The sages warned us, the flesh is sacred, but it is not you. You are the witness of it. You are the breath through it. You are the light within it. The Bhagavad Gita says, as a person sheds worn-out garments and wears new ones, so does the soul cast off its worn-out body and enter a new one. The soul doesn't die. It changes clothes, but Maya whispers, number. This is all there is, this face, this form, this name period, and we believe her because we touch it, we see it, we feel its hunger, its pleasure, its pain. But the body is a sensory map, not the territory. It's a keyboard, not the composer. It's the lantern, not the flame. When you over-identify with the body, Maya strengthens her grip, because the moment you forget your eternal nature, you become controllable, manipulatable, fearful of death, and desperate for survival. And that's the prison. This illusion is not just about pleasure. It's about distraction. You're taught to obsess over appearance, to measure worth in symmetry, youth, fitness, skin tone. And so the soul retreats into silence, while the ego dresses up the shell. But the ancients knew. Real beauty wasn't in the flesh. It radiated through the flesh, a divine spark glowing from within. Yogis called it the Atman, the undying self, untouched by age, pain, or form. Sufi mystics danced not to celebrate the body, but to forget it, to spin until the boundaries dissolved, until the ego cracked and the light poured through. You are not this gender, not this weight, not this diagnosis or this birth certificate. You are the sky watching the cloud, the silence behind the voice, the soul behind the story. Let the body be loved, but not worshipped. Let it serve you, but do not serve it, because the day you stop confusing the temple for the divine is the day you remember you were never flesh and bone. You were the one moving through the dream. And when you wake up from the illusion of identity, you stop defending the mask and start revealing the essence, not to prove anything, not to transcend the body, but to finally inhabit it as the eternal guest, quiet, radiant, free. Most people aren't awake, but they're not dead either. They're dreaming, eyes open, hearts closed. It's not an accident. It's not a personal failure. It's the trance of the many, the collective sleep that feels like waking life. From the moment you're born, the dream begins, not the one that whispers at night, but the one that's reinforced in broad daylight. You're taught the rules, the schedule, the norms, what to fear, what to chase, what success looks like, what failure tastes like, and most of all, what not to question. This is the dream within the dream, the architecture of Maya at scale. The Vedic sages spoke of samsara, the cycle of illusion, birth, and rebirth. But what they didn't always explain is that samsara isn't just an afterlife concept. It's right now, in the office cubicles, in the commercials selling you worth, in the classrooms teaching memorization over imagination, in the news headlines stirring panic and polarization. Society at large is a hypnotic script, one you didn't write, but were told to memorize. And the deeper you go into it, the more the illusion rewards you. Obey, and you're praised. Conform, and you're promoted. Repeat the dream, and you're considered sane. But step out of it. Begin to question. Ask if there's more. You're labeled crazy, delusional, dangerous, because one dreamer who wakes up shakes the whole dream. That's why mystics were exiled, prophets were persecuted, teachers of inner light were silenced, because they threatened not the outer system, but the inner sleep. You see, collective dreaming is like a net, each belief a thread, each fear a knot, and most people live their entire lives tangled in it, calling it reality. But what happens when one thread loosens? When one person pauses, feels the breath, questions the story, the dream wobbles, the illusion thins, the matrix glitches, and for a flicker, truth breaks through. That's why awakening often feels lonely, because while the world sleeps, your eyes are adjusting to a different light. But remember this, you're not alone. There are others walking backward through the illusion, others unlearning the script, others remembering they were never just characters in this play, but the authors of it. The collective dream is strong, but your soul is stronger. And every time you choose presence over programming, every time you love without agenda, or forgive without reason, or breathe in stillness instead of fear, you weaken the illusion, not just for yourself, but for the world. You become a crack in the trance, a whisper in the silence, a torch in the fog. And when enough torches light up, the dream ends, not with violence, not with protest, but with remembering. The many are still asleep, but you're stirring, and that's how every revolution begins. Waking up is not a sunrise moment, not at first. It's a rupture, a tearing open, a death before the light. Because to wake up, you must let the dream die, and the dream is warm, familiar, comfortable in all the ways truth never is. At first, everything you believed begins to unravel. Not just ideas, but your identity, your attachments, your sense of safety, your version of who you thought you were. The illusion had scaffolding, systems, labels, rituals. You thought you were a name, a role, a resume, a story with clear chapters and bullet points. And then Maya slips, and the curtain falls, and suddenly you're left staring at something terrifying and raw, the unknown. It's not gentle, because lies rarely leave quietly. They kick, they scream, they seduce you one last time. That's why so many turn back, because the first stage of awakening doesn't feel like bliss. It feels like grief. Grief for the years spent asleep. Grief for the masks worn too long. Grief for the comfort that came at the cost of truth. But here's the secret. Discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the threshold, the sacred fire that burns off illusion. Like birth, messy, painful, and soaked in the unknown, but necessary, because you cannot carry the old self into a new world. That's why the sages warned us, why the Buddha spoke of dukkha, the suffering born of attachment, why Jesus said the narrow path leads to life, why mystics entered deserts, caves, and silence, to die to the false, so they could live in the real. You see, waking up hurts, not because truth is cruel, but because we've grown too attached to the lie. And in this sacred unraveling, your nervous system panics, your ego clings, your friends may not understand, your family may think you've lost your way, but you haven't. You found it. Because truth doesn't always arrive with angels and incense. Sometimes it comes as loneliness, as isolation, as the aching silence between who you were and who you're becoming. But don't run from it. Stay, breathe, feel it. Because underneath that pain is a clarity so deep, so holy. It can't be explained, only experienced. And once you walk through that valley, you'll realize something profound. The pain wasn't punishment, it was purification. It wasn't the end, it was the invitation. To see again, to be again, to remember the light that was never lost, only veiled. Waking up hurts, at first, but so does any resurrection. And you weren't born to remain buried, you were born to rise. Desire is not the enemy, it is the architect of experience. The spark behind movement, the ache behind incarnation, and the very tool Maya uses to hold your soul in her spell. From the moment you were born, the world whispered, "Want this." The touch of a parent, the smile of approval, the toy, the treat, the title. And so begins the binding, not by force but by seduction. Maya doesn't chain you. She offers you what you already crave: security, belonging, power, love. But here's the secret. Desire, in its unconscious form, narrows perception. It tells you, "I need this to be whole." And in that moment, you forget you already are. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna warns Arjuna, desire leads to attachment. Attachment leads to expectation. Expectation leads to suffering. And so, the cycle spins. Not because you're evil, but because you forgot to look beneath the craving. Tantric texts taught this long before psychology caught up. They didn't say destroy desire. They said transmute it, transform it into awareness. Desire, when seen clearly, becomes a doorway. But when followed blindly, it becomes a loop, endless and consuming. A dream within a dream. Advertisers understand this better than sages. They engineer craving. They don't sell products. They sell the feeling you think the product will give you. And Maya claps in the background, grateful you're still asleep. The role of desire isn't to punish you, it's to wake you, to show you where you're still looking outward for what only lives inward. You crave love. You are love. You crave peace. You are the stillness between thoughts. You crave purpose. You are purpose unfolding. But Maya knows the game is lost the moment you turn within, because the cravings dissolve, not because they were fulfilled, but because you remembered they were never real. The Upanishads call this vairagya, dispassion, not apathy, but a sacred detachment, the ability to move through the world with an open heart and empty hands. Desire still arises, but it no longer owns you. You act not because you lack, but because you are overflowing. This is the shift from unconscious craving to conscious creation. And when you see through the veil of desire, Maya loses her grip, not in anger, but in reverence. Because even illusion, when honored, points back to truth. You were never meant to suppress desire. You were meant to outgrow it. And when you do, you'll feel something subtle begin to rise in you. Not a craving, not an urge, but a remembering. The soul doesn't chase, it calls. And the moment you hear that call, the dream begins to dissolve. Your eyes were never meant to show you truth. Only form, only surface, only the shimmering mask of reality, not what lies behind it. The senses are exquisite instruments, but they are not windows to truth. They are filters, gatekeepers, crafted to make the dream feel real. Touch, taste, sight, sound, and smell. They anchor you to a world of separation, of edges and distance, of this and that, of here and there, but the soul knows no such boundaries. In Vedanta, the five senses are called jnanendriyas, knowledge acquirers. Yet the sages warned, what they acquire is not ultimate knowledge. It is relative knowledge, bound by illusion, bound by maya. The taste of honey is not its essence. The sight of a mountain is not its stillness. The sound of a voice is not its intention. And your body, what you see in the mirror, is not who you are. The ancient seers taught that the senses are part of the lower prakriti, the manifest world, and that beyond them lies the unmanifest, the eternal, the real. But to find it, you must close your eyes, not in blindness, but in reverence. This is why the mystics meditate, why the yogis retreat into silence, why the prophets fast in the desert. They are not punishing the body, they are peeling it back. They are turning down the volume on illusion so they can hear the soul whisper. Because truth doesn't scream, it doesn't shine neon. It waits behind the senses, quiet, still, unmoving. Science too is beginning to whisper what sages shouted for centuries. Quantum physics shows us that matter isn't solid, it's probability. That nothing exists independently, only in relation. And that observation changes reality itself. Your eyes do not see, they interpret. Your ears do not hear, they translate vibration. Your skin does not feel, it reacts to change. Everything you know through the senses is second-hand. This is not a curse, it's a clue. The senses were designed to play the game, to give the soul a sandbox, a playground, a maze with mirrors. But once you know you're in the game, you begin to move differently. You stop believing everything you see. You stop reacting to every sensation. You become still. And in that stillness, you see for the first time, not with the eyes, but with awareness, not with the mind, but with presence. Because the deepest truths are never perceived. They are remembered. And when you remember, even for a moment, the game changes. The dream softens, the veil thins, and Maya smiles. Not because you've escaped, but because you've begun to see. There comes a moment when the dream begins to flicker, when the curtain ripples just enough for you to question if it was ever solid at all. You see the same numbers everywhere. You think of someone and they call. You speak a wish in silence and the answer appears. In a song lyric, a stranger's sentence, a passing cloud. These are not accidents. They're not quirks of coincidence. They are glitches, but not the kind that mean the world is broken. Number, they mean something far more powerful. That Maya is bending, because illusion is not perfect. It's crafted with precision, but not permanence. The sages knew this. They spoke of Lila, divine play, and reminded us that the dream would occasionally wink back. A crack in the simulation, a ripple in the field. These moments are sacred. They're invitations, not anomalies. The Gnostics spoke of the world as a false construct, a counterfeit creation woven by lower forces. But even they knew the true light still shines through the veil, in dreams, in déjà vu, in moments that make no sense to the mind, but total sense to the soul. Modern science now tiptoes into this territory, where consciousness is not bound to the brain, and where reality may depend on the observer. Physicists see particles behaving like waves when watched, as if the universe knows it's being seen. And it does, because the dream is alive, not dead matter, but living intelligence. And when you begin to awaken, it responds. Glitches are not errors. They are echoes of remembrance, clues that the matrix isn't as firm as it pretends to be. They are the dream tugging at your sleeve, whispering, "There's more." So what do you do when you see one? You pause. You breathe. You don't rush to label it or explain it away. You feel it, because that's the language beyond language. And in that stillness, a knowing arises, not of the mind, but from deeper, from that ancient place inside you that never fully forgot. These moments are doorways, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. You begin to realize that life was never random, that every chapter, every heartbreak, every synchronicity was part of the same woven dance. The glitches are the grace notes, so when reality slips, don't panic. When time folds, don't fear. When the symbols repeat, listen, because you are not losing your grip. You are loosening your bondage, and sometimes, when Maya bends, what's behind her starts to shine through. You've met them before, that person who enters your life and feels familiar, not in a surface way, but in the bones, in the silence, in the recognition behind the eyes. You say, "Have we met before?" But the mind can't place it, because it wasn't this life. It was another, and maybe another before that. This is the secret Maya keeps hidden beneath the veil, that time is not linear, and neither are you. You are not living your first story. You are walking through a loop, a sacred spiraling dream that bends through lifetimes. Each chapter scripted with soul contracts, agreements forged in the light before birth, so that you could remember who you are, piece by piece. The ones who challenge you the most were often your greatest teachers before. The ones you love instantly, they were with you when stars were still forming. In Vedic philosophy, this is samsara, the wheel of rebirth, the endless cycle of illusion and remembrance. And in between lives, the soul chooses, not from punishment, but from purpose. A promise made, a role accepted, a mission entrusted to the flesh. But when you are born, you forget. You forget the script, you forget the stage, you forget the players, until the moment they enter the scene and something inside you stirs. That is the beauty of the dream. Maya conceals, so awakening becomes the most sacred discovery. The ancient Egyptians knew this. The Greeks whispered of Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. The Tibetans mapped the Bardo, the space between death and rebirth, where the soul reviews, chooses, and returns. Even modern researchers in near-death experiences and past life regression are now confirming what mystics always knew. You've been here before, you've loved before, you've fallen and risen, again and again, and each time you come back, you're not starting over. You're continuing a journey, so when you feel drawn to someone, so deeply it bypasses logic. Listen, when you fear someone instantly, yet can't explain it, look deeper. There may be stories beneath the skin, karmic threads tangled from other lifetimes, waiting to be seen and healed. And maybe, just maybe, that person you can't forget was never meant to be forgotten. Maya makes you forget, but the soul remembers in dreams, in visions, in the quiet space between heartbeats. You've met before, and you will again, because the dream may loop, but love never forgets. Pain was never the punishment, it was always the signal. But in the dream, we misread the signs. We were taught to fear pain, to silence it, to medicate it, to run from it, as if it were the enemy. But what if pain was actually your oldest friend? What if it was the part of you that refused to let you sleep forever? In the illusion of Maya, where everything is transient, pleasure, comfort, status, identity, pain is often the only thing that feels real. Because it is real, but not in the way you've been taught to believe. Pain is the soul's alarm clock. It rings when something is off. Not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, energetically. When you experience loss, betrayal, heartbreak, the ego wants to say, this shouldn't be happening. But the soul whispers, this is the moment you awaken. Across spiritual traditions, pain is initiation. The Buddha began his journey not in enlightenment, but in suffering. He saw illness, death, and impermanence, and it broke the dream of the palace. It cracked the illusion. In Christianity, suffering isn't glorified, but it is sacred. The cross is not just a symbol of death, but of resurrection, of what lies beyond the pain. And in the Gnostic texts, pain is often described as the resistance of light against the cage of illusion. In that light, your suffering is not a punishment. It's a call, a vibration from the center of your being saying, you are ready now. Look deeper. Wake up. Even modern psychology is beginning to understand this. Carl Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Because to become aware is to see what you are hiding, what you couldn't face when you were still asleep. Pain, in its purest form, is sacred pressure. It pushes you toward evolution, a breakup, a breakdown, a diagnosis, a betrayal. These are not signs of failure. They are portals. They don't mean something is wrong. They mean something is being revealed, a lesson, a contract, a truth. And when you pass through that fire, when you don't run from it, but listen, you emerge with sight you didn't have before. Because pain refines you. It doesn't define you. So the next time it hurts, pause, breathe. Ask not why me, but what is this trying to awaken? Because in the dream, suffering is not cruelty. It's course correction. And every tear is a drop of memory returning. They came from different lands, spoke in different tongues, lived among different people, and yet they all said the same thing, that this world, this dream we take so seriously, is not the end. It is not the truth. It is a veil, a lesson, a mirror that distorts until you learn how to see. Buddha didn't preach from dogma. He spoke from silence. After sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, he didn't return with a new religion. He returned with clarity. He saw that suffering was not life's punishment, but life's signal. He called Maya the great illusion, the seductive game of desire and aversion. He taught that clinging to anything in this world, pleasure or pain, identity or fear, was like trying to grasp smoke. And so he offered a path, the Noble Eightfold Way, not as a religion, but as a technology of liberation. Then there was Krishna, the divine guide in the Bhagavad Gita. In the middle of a battlefield, not a temple, he told Arjuna that all of this was a play, that the soul does not kill and cannot be killed, that birth and death are part of the illusion, and the warrior's real enemy was not another man, but his own mind. Krishna didn't beg Arjuna to follow him. He told him to awaken, to see through it, to act without attachment, to remember that his soul was ancient, eternal, and watching the game from behind the mask. And then came Christ. Not the sanitized version they packaged in gold and gilt, but the wild mystic, the revealer of inner kingdoms. He said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you. Not in a book, not behind a pulpit, not after you die, but now, here, through the veil. He called out the systems that twisted truth into control. He healed through vibration. He taught with parables that pierced the illusion. He said, "Let those with eyes to see, see." He didn't mean your physical eyes. He meant the one that watches from the center of your being. These teachers weren't trying to build empires. They were trying to awaken a species. They knew Maya could not be fought with swords or sermons. It had to be seen through, like mist pierced by the rising sun. They came as reminders, to break the spell, to shock the dreamer awake with love. And every time we return to their words, not the dogma built around them, but the pulse beneath them, we remember that we are not these bodies, not these stories, not these passing fears. We are the light watching the dream flicker and fade, and these teachers were just mirrors held up to help us see that light again, within. And that mirror is now in your hands. When Neo woke up in that pod, covered in slime, wires sticking out of his spine, it wasn't science fiction. It was revelation wrapped in a screenplay. The Matrix wasn't just a film. It was prophecy, a modern myth encoded with an ancient truth, one that the mystics whispered long before Hollywood ever lit a camera, that we are dreaming inside a dream. And most of us don't know we're asleep. Plato called it the cave, a place where prisoners mistake shadows for reality. They sit facing the wall, watching flickers, echoes, symbols. And when one of them breaks free and sees the source, the fire, the figures, the truth, they return to warn the others, only to be laughed at, or worse. The Buddhists call it samsara, a cycle of illusion and rebirth, where souls spin on a wheel they don't even know exists, mistaking attachment for purpose, suffering for fate. The Gnostics called it the prison of matter, ruled by false gods, the archons, who feed off confusion. They said the world was rigged, not just politically, but metaphysically, a divine spark buried beneath layers of deception. In every era, the awakened have tried to tell us, you're plugged in, not to machines, but to beliefs, programs, agreements you never consciously made, but still obey. And so, when Neo was offered the red pill, it wasn't about pills, it was about choice. Will you go back to sleep because comfort feels easier than truth? Or will you wake up and face the disorientation of seeing clearly? Because awakening hurts. The eyes burn when they first touch the light. The heart trembles when it realizes it's been lied to. But truth doesn't destroy you. It dissolves the illusion that was draining you. Every glitch you felt, the moment time moved strangely, the déjà vu that made no sense, the dream that felt more real than your waking life. These weren't accidents. They were breadcrumbs, messages from the soul, reminders that this world isn't all there is. You've been trained to trust only the physical, to laugh at what can't be measured, to deny the mystical and obey the mechanical. But the matrix isn't outside of you. It's inside your perception. It's how you've been taught to think, to see, to forget. And like Neo, you must unplug from the rules of a false world so you can remember the one you came from. Because this isn't just a movie. This is your moment. And the screen you're staring at right now, it's not showing you the whole picture, but it might be offering you the first red pill. And the question still lingers, quietly, eternally. Are you ready to wake up? There comes a moment when the world starts whispering back. You glance at the clock, 11:11. Again, you think of someone and they call. A phrase echoes from a stranger's lips, one you just thought to yourself the night before. These are not accidents, they are synchronicities, and they are the cracks in Maya's code. The sages have always said the universe is not dead matter. It is a living, breathing intelligence, consciousness echoing itself across dimensions. And when your soul begins to stir from its slumber, that intelligence responds. It speaks in patterns, in numbers, in chance encounters, in repeating symbols you can't explain, but feel deep in your bones. Synchronicity is not coincidence, it is resonance. Carl Jung, the mystic psychologist, gave it a name. He saw that events could align with meaning, not with cause, a higher logic, a hidden rhythm, because when you awaken, the dream starts bending, Maya loses grip, and reality becomes malleable, like wet clay in your hands. The veil thins, the outer world mirrors the inner shift, and the signs begin to show, not to convince you, but to confirm what your spirit already knows, that you are not alone, that you are on the path, that something unseen is seeing you, responding to your energy, weaving your awakening into the fabric of the dream. But here's the truth. Synchronicities don't happen to you. They happen through you. They are the result of alignment. When thought, emotion, and soul intention meet in harmony. When you stop pushing and start listening. When you surrender your will and walk with wonder. Then everything becomes a message. The bird on your window, the lyric on the radio, the stranger who says just the thing your soul was aching to hear. But beware, Maya is clever. Not every pattern is divine. Not every number is a sign. Some symbols are traps, meant to confuse rather than confirm. So how do you tell the difference? Feel it. Truth will never rush you. It arrives in peace. It expands your awareness, not your anxiety. And when synchronicity is real, you know, not in your head, but in your gut, in your breath, in your stillness. It's the universe winking, the dream pulsing at the seams, a sacred reminder that you were never asleep all the way. And the moment you start to notice, you begin to wake even deeper. Synchronicity is not magic. It is memory of who you are and what you came here to remember. There is a turning point in the journey, a sacred rupture in the illusion, where the dream doesn't end, but something within you begins to awaken inside it. This is the moment the dream becomes lucid. You are still here, still inside Maya, still walking streets paved by history and held by gravity, but your gaze has changed. And suddenly, the sky doesn't just look blue, it feels like a metaphor. The people you meet aren't just strangers, they're echoes, mirrors, messengers. Time begins to stretch, moments feel more layered. Reality bends, subtly but undeniably, as if the rules have softened around the edges. Because you are no longer fully identified with the role, you are the actor, realizing you are acting. And that shift is the key. Lucid dreaming in sleep means you realize you're dreaming, but you stay inside the dream. You don't wake up in your bed. You wake up in the dream, with awareness, with power, with the ability to shape what once shaped you. This is what happens in the world when your consciousness ripens, when your inner flame burns just bright enough to pierce the veil without burning it down. Lucidity does not mean escape. It means engagement. It means living with your eyes open. While still inside the dreamscape, it means seeing the construct, but walking it with grace. Feeling the illusion, but playing your part with presence. In the Hindu Upanishads, it's said that the one who sees Maya, but is not bound by her, has truly begun to see. You realize the rules aren't fixed. You are not bound by what others believe. You are not limited by the collective script. You can rewrite from within, but be gentle with yourself, with others, because most are still sleeping. And it is not your job to shout. It is your role to embody, to become the awakening, to hold the vibration of truth. Inside the illusion, like a lotus blooming through a mirage. The lucid dreamer doesn't run. They look deeper. They ask, why did I dream this? What lesson hides here? What light is being mirrored back to me? Because Maya is not just a trick. She's a teacher, a master of mirrors. And when you awaken within her spell, you begin to see her beauty, not as reality, but as the art of consciousness in motion. The dream becomes sacred, not because it's real, but because you are. And now that you're lucid, everything starts to change. There is a mask that fits so perfectly, you forget you're wearing it. It speaks with your voice, moves with your limbs, feels what you feel, and yet it isn't you. This mask is called ego, and it is Maya's favorite disguise. Because ego is not evil, it is essential. It is the interface, the avatar, the temporary character in a cosmic play. It's how your soul experiences contrast, challenge, and choice. But it was never meant to be the author, only the actor. The problem is, the actor began to believe it was the story. And that is where illusion reaches its final, most intimate veil. Because it's one thing to question the world around you, to doubt the news, the systems, the politics, the rituals. But it's another thing entirely to question the I who is doing the doubting, the identity you defend, the name you answer to, the roles you play, the pain you carry. Ego clings to all of it, not because it is cruel, but because it is afraid. Afraid of not being needed, afraid of disappearing, afraid of death, even the symbolic kind. Because when you begin to awaken, the ego doesn't go quietly. It will spiritualize itself. It will pretend to surrender. It will even say, I am enlightened, just to stay alive. But the deeper truth, you are not the ego watching the movie. You are the screen it's playing on. You are the awareness behind the mask, the silence behind the thoughts. In Vedanta, they call it the neti-neti path. Not this, not that. Not the body, not the mind, not even the personality. You strip away again and again until only pure awareness remains. And that is when Maya begins to tremble. Because once you see the mask for what it is, you can wear it consciously or take it off entirely. You can be in the world, but not of it. This is why ego is the final illusion, because it is the closest, the most convincing, the most defended, and letting go of it feels like death. But it is not death. It is resurrection. You don't vanish. You expand. You don't dissolve. You become the ocean, realizing you were never just the wave. And from that place, you can still speak, still laugh, still live. But the grip is gone. The fear softens. The identity becomes fluid. Maya no longer controls you through the mirror, because now you remember the face beneath it. They taught you that time was a straight line, a ticking clock, a series of cause and effect strung together like beads on a string. But what if I told you that this too was part of the illusion? Time, in this dream, behaves like a net, not a line. It wraps around perception, giving the appearance of movement where there is only stillness, of separation where there is only presence. It's a trick of the lens, a sleight of mind. You are not in time. time is in you. The mystics always knew this. The yogis of India, the seers of Egypt, the dream walkers of the Andes. They didn't just meditate to find peace. They meditated to exit the script, to slip between the seconds. Because once you leave the illusion of time, you start to remember. Remember that past lives aren't behind you. They're around you, echoing, influencing, waiting to be felt. And your future, it isn't some fixed road you're marching toward. It's a frequency, a potential, a possibility vibrating just outside the range of your current belief. When your vibration shifts, so does the next scene in the dream. That's why the greatest shifts don't come from doing more. They come from being more still, more aligned, more awake. Einstein hinted at this when he said the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. But this isn't just philosophy, it's physics. In quantum mechanics, particles can exist in multiple states at once. Time, at the subatomic level, doesn't flow like a river. It exists more like a cloud, a field, and you are its dreamer. So when you revisit an old memory and suddenly feel it differently, that's not just nostalgia, it's multidimensional healing. You're rewriting the blueprint, touching the thread in the web that always existed, but now glows with new light. This is why spiritual awakening feels so strange. Because the more awake you become, the less linear your life feels. Things overlap. Past wounds come up through present triggers. Synchronicities arrive from futures you haven't lived yet. It's not confusion, it's collapse. The dream is folding in on itself, and in that collapse the truth emerges. There is only now, and you have always been here, watching, waiting, dreaming yourself into form again and again. The clock was never your master, it was your mirror. And when you finally stop chasing the next moment, you catch up with your soul. Because outside the illusion of time, you don't find answers. You find everything, all at once. There's a frequency that doesn't follow the rules of Maya. It doesn't bend to logic. It doesn't ask for proof. And it doesn't play by the dream's conditions. It enters quietly, like a whisper in the dark. And when it touches you, really touches you, the illusion begins to crack. That frequency is love. Not the kind sold in stories or confined to roles. Not attachment dressed up in romance. Not need disguised as devotion. But the real thing, the ancient thing. The thing that was here before the dream began. Because love is not an emotion. It is a field, a presence, a code embedded into the soul's blueprint. And when it activates, it doesn't just change how you feel. It changes what you see. Suddenly the mask drops. The ego softens. The war inside quiets. And for a moment, maybe just a breath, you remember. You remember that this life was never about winning, never about collecting, never about proving anything at all. It was always about presence, connection, return. In that moment of love, real love, something sacred ignites. You see the one in the many, the divine in the ordinary. You see the face of God in a child's eyes, in a stranger's kindness, in the hand that reaches for yours with no agenda at all. And that seeing, that frequency, begins to shake the walls of the dream. Because Maya feeds on separation, on fear, on the belief that you are alone. But love reminds you, you were never alone, not for a second. The Gnostics called it agape. The Sufis called it ishq-e-hakiki. The mystics called it union, and every awakened being who walked this earth, from Yeshua to Yogananda, knew that love wasn't just a virtue, it was the way out, because love is the only energy that cannot be faked in the realm of Maya. It bypasses illusion. It pierces the veil. And when it floods your field, you stop being a character in the dream. And you become the dreamer again. That's why awakening hurts, because the heart must break, wide open. It must dissolve its armor, its walls, its stories. And in that sacred cracking, the light gets in. This is why the dream is shifting now, why synchronicities are rising, why the old systems are trembling, because love is returning, not as a feeling, but as a force, the kind that moves through galaxies, the kind that builds temples with its silence, the kind that remembers who you are when you forget. So if you ever feel lost, if the illusion grows thick again, don't fight it, feel it. Then let love do what it was always meant to do, break the spell, and wake you up. You were told to fear Maya, to run from it, condemn it, blame it for every wound, every loss, every veil between you and the divine. But what if Maya was never the enemy? What if illusion was part of the design? Not as punishment, but as play. This is the forgotten truth. Maya is not evil. Maya is misunderstood. It's not here to trap the soul. It's here to train it, to stretch it, to sculpt it into something that can carry light inside the heaviest of forms. Because only in the realm of illusion can truth be chosen, not imposed. Only in forgetting can remembering become sacred. Think of a child playing hide and seek. They close their eyes, count to 10, and pretend not to know where their friends have gone. The game is thrilling, not because it's real, but because they choose to make it real for a while. They surrender to the rules of the game to experience the joy of the discovery. The soul does the same. It descends into the veil, agrees to forget, takes on names, fears, wounds, and all the while, it's searching for itself. Not because it's lost, but because it wants to remember again, because the remembering awakens something eternal. That's the paradox of Maya. It hides the truth, so that when you find it, it means something. This is what the sages meant when they said life is a lila, a divine play. The Upanishads describe it not as a trap, but as a sacred game where consciousness wears every mask, where the formless puts on form, just to experience its own reflection from 1,000 different angles. Pain, joy, doubt, bliss. They're all part of the curriculum. And Maya, it's the school. It gives you the illusion of control, so that surrender becomes a revelation. It gives you the illusion of separation, so that union becomes ecstasy. It gives you the illusion of limitation, so that freedom becomes earned, not assumed. This is the dream we volunteered for, not to suffer, but to remember who we are, in a place where everything told us to forget. Even the Gnostics, who warned of false realities and archonic interference, also hinted that within illusion lies a hidden ladder, a way back, a doorway encoded in the dream itself. But to find it, you must stop cursing the dream and start seeing it for what it is. A playground for the soul, a mirror with lessons, a story with sacred symbols written between every line. Maya does not want to own you. It wants to wake you. And when you stop fighting it, when you meet the illusion with awareness, something shifts. The playground becomes a temple, and the game becomes a gateway. There is something behind your eyes that does not move when you move. It does not age when the body ages. It does not panic when the mind spirals. It does not believe the dream, but it watches. In every tradition, this presence has a name. The Buddhists call it the witness. The Vedantins call it the Atman. The mystics call it the flame. But it is not a thing. It is not a thought. It is awareness, naked, formless, still, and it has never been asleep. Even as your body was born into Maya, even as your senses were overwhelmed, your mind entangled, your identity sculpted by culture and pain, this silent observer remained untouched. It's been with you in every heartbreak, in every mistake, in every lifetime. Not judging, not reacting, only seeing. Can you feel it now? That subtle presence watching even as you hear these words. It's not the one interpreting, not the one thinking. It's the one noticing the thinker. And this is the key. Because while Maya dances and screams and seduces and deceives, the watcher remains still. It doesn't react to the illusion. It sees through it. Not with eyes, but with being. That's why awakening doesn't come through effort, but through remembering the one who never forgot. The Upanishads say, that which sees but cannot be seen is the self. The Gospel of Thomas whispers, when you come to know yourselves, then you will be known. And Rumi, smiling through the veil, says, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. The watcher is the part of you that was never in the dream. It is the part that never laughs, never cries, but holds the space for laughter and tears. It's the sacred canvas behind the painting, the screen behind the movie, the sky behind the storm. And here's the mystery. You cannot find the watcher with effort. You can only notice it by being still, because it's always been here, waiting, behind every breath, beneath every distraction, silently aware of all that changes, while never changing itself. This is what sages mean when they say, you are not the body. They're not asking you to reject the body. They're asking you to return to the seat of awareness, to the source of perception. And when you do, even for a moment, Maya begins to dissolve, because the watcher sees the illusion, but does not believe it. It knows that form is fleeting, that identities are borrowed, that even this world is a dream being witnessed from the stillness of eternity. So the question is not, how do I wake up? The question is, can I remember the one who was never asleep? Because that stillness, that silence behind the eyes, that is who you've always been, and that presence is already free. There is a moment the body stops breathing, the heart quiets, the eyes close, and the world fades from view. But something doesn't end. It begins, because death, for the soul, is not a wall. It's a door, not a disappearance, but a shift in awareness. You're not ending. You're awakening from a role you mistook for the self. In that first breathless silence, a strange familiarity returns, as if you've been here before, as if this was always waiting behind the scenes, like the backstage of a dream. All your identities, names, stories begin to dissolve like fog in sunlight, and what remains is you. Not the you that worried and performed and clung to the illusion, but the quiet you, the one who knew this was never forever. The ancient texts whispered it again and again, from the Tibetan Book of the Dead to the Bhagavad Gita, from the Egyptian papyrus of Ani to the Gospel of Philip. They all agreed, the soul does not die, it transitions, it remembers. You were the witness behind the dream of life, and now the dream fades. And yet, there's no fear, because fear only belonged to the character, and the character is now sleeping. What happens next? A review, perhaps. Not with judgment, but with compassion. You may see your choices not through guilt, but through clarity. The ripples you caused, the love you gave, the fear you obeyed. And it's not about punishment, it's about understanding. And if your soul is ready, truly ready, you'll awaken even more deeply. You'll see this life as a single thread in a vast tapestry, one dream among many, and realize you've worn countless faces. You've been the victim and the villain, the seeker and the sleeper, the lost and the guide. And with that realization comes peace, because the soul knows it cannot be broken, it cannot be ended, only veiled, only forgotten, until now. This is why death, though feared by the mind, is revered by the mystic. It is the moment the veil lifts, the moment Maya loses its grip, the moment the eye turns inward and sees through all illusion. You didn't come here to last. You came here to learn. And now you're remembering what you never truly lost. That life was a lesson. That pain was a teacher. That love was the real curriculum. And now you return to the source, to the stillness that never moved, to the flame that never flickered. Because death ends nothing. It only ends the forgetting. And the dreamer wakes up. From the moment you opened your eyes in this life, something felt familiar, a strange déjà vu beneath the noise, a whisper in your chest, like you've walked this path before, with different names, different faces, but the same longing to awaken, because you have. You've died many times, and each time the veil of Maya reset the dream. The rules shifted slightly, the scenery changed, but the soul, your soul, remembered in echoes, not in thoughts, but in deep impressions, in dreams that seemed more vivid than waking life, in patterns that repeated, relationships that felt ancient, and places you'd never been that still felt like home. In the ancient East, this wasn't called imagination. It was called samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. The looping dream of consciousness, forgetting itself to experience itself. And in the West, mystics and prophets spoke of the eternal return. The Gnostics called it the prison of cycles. The Vedic seers called it Lila, the divine play. And yet, across all traditions, there was always a way out. Not out of life, but out of the trance. What you're feeling now, this stirring, this strange sense that you're waking up inside something ancient, is not new, but the timing is, because while souls have remembered in the past, it's rarely happened like this, across continents at once. That's what makes now different. We are reaching the end of an epoch, and you incarnated now, not by accident, but by design, not just to remember for yourself, but to carry a spark, to ripple that awakening, to help others realize that what we've called reality is, in truth, a layered dream. Modern physics supports what mystics have said for millennia. Time is not linear. The universe may be a hologram. Parallel lives may be unfolding simultaneously, and the observer, you, is entangled with all of them. What does this mean? It means you are not just one character moving through a single timeline. You are the consciousness behind the mask, and you've worn thousands of them, each one tailored to your soul's growth, each one designed to trigger the next layer of awakening. And if you found this message in this moment, you're on the cusp, because this chapter of the dream, this strange, unstable world, was designed to shake you, to rattle the illusion, to open a door. You've done this before, but this time, you're not meant to forget again. This time, you remember. And when one soul remembers, truly remembers, it's not just a personal awakening. It's the beginning of a great unraveling. The veil doesn't tear with force. It lifts gently with remembrance. And that remembrance is already happening. The moment you begin to stir inside the dream, it notices, not as a force with eyes or will of its own, but as a system, a matrix of patterns and loops that feeds on predictability. And when something within you starts to move differently, when you stop reacting the same way, stop believing the same things, stop living on autopilot, the dream begins to press back. You may feel it as chaos, sudden obstacles, people pulling away, old wounds resurfacing, a sharp rise in fear, confusion, or doubt. It feels personal, like the world is against you. But it's not the world. It's the web of Maya tightening around the places where you're slipping through. Because Maya isn't just illusion, it's momentum. It's everything that's been programmed to keep the game running smoothly. And when you glitch the code by waking up, the system scrambles to recalibrate. This is why the ancient texts warned of the threshold. In Buddhist teachings, the moment of true awakening is often followed by what's called the storm. In the Gospel of Thomas, Yeshua said, "When you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. The same energy that liberates you will test you, because your old self, the one built for the dream, won't dissolve quietly." This is where most turn back, not because they aren't ready, but because they mistake resistance for failure. They think, "I was better off before. At least then, things were calm. At least then, I didn't feel crazy." But that calm was sleep. That peace was numbness. And what you feel now, this unraveling, is the contraction before birth. It's sacred discomfort. It means you're not dreaming in sync with the lie anymore. You're moving from character to consciousness, from puppet to presence. The dream fights back, but not because it's evil. It's protective, of continuity, of familiarity, and on a deeper level, of you. Because only the soul that's truly ready will persist through the resistance. Only the seeker that knows this is more than philosophy will walk through the fire without burning. And there is a fire, not one of punishment, but purification, a sacred dismantling. It burns the masks, the roles, the attachments, and what's left is real. So don't panic when the lights flicker. Don't run when things fall apart. This is the ancient rite, disguised as modern breakdown. This is how illusions end. Not with a bang, but with a shedding. Stay centered. Anchor in breath, in presence, in the knowing that this storm is not the end, it's the beginning. The goal was never to escape the dream. That was a misunderstanding, a spiritual bypass, a misreading of the ancient texts through the eyes of a wounded ego, one that only wanted out. But the sages never said run. They said wake up. They said see through it. And once you do, don't flee, create, because the dream isn't a trap, it's a canvas. And Maya, as complex and veiled as she is, isn't here to punish you. She's here to respond to you, to reflect what you carry, to amplify what you believe. The moment you awaken inside the illusion, not after death, not in some distant realm, here is the moment you become a conscious architect of it. This is where everything shifts. The ancient Vedic text spoke of Maya Shakti, the divine power to shape illusion, not just to see it, but to engage with it, like a lucid dreamer changes the scene. This wasn't fantasy, it was mastery, the understanding that reality is pliable, malleable, a code written by frequency, thought, and emotion. Modern physics now echoes the same truth. Quantum experiments like the double slit test prove that the observer affects the outcome. That consciousness doesn't just witness matter, it molds it. Reality is not static, It dances in response to intention. This isn't poetry. It's the science of spirit made visible. And if you're truly awake, you're not here to escape. You're here to rewrite, to see where fear created limitation and dissolve it with presence, to take the script that was handed to you, one of trauma, scarcity, smallness, and revise it with remembrance. You are not here to just see the code. You are here to become fluent in it. But here's the paradox. You can't rewrite Maya from the ego, because that part of you is the dream. It wants control, certainty, power. And Maya plays along, giving you more illusions dressed as progress. But when you create from stillness, from the quiet knowing behind the noise, something changes. You're no longer reacting to the dream. You're composing it. This is what all the great teachers did. They walked through Maya with open eyes, changing it by being. Not with resistance, but with resonance. They didn't escape the illusion. They infused it with truth until it cracked open from within. So if you feel like running away, pause. What if the answer isn't in another place but another level of participation? What if the escape hatch was your own power to transform? Breathe, return, remember. The dream bends for those who are lucid, but only if their heart is aligned. And if you're still listening, you're already rewriting. At the end of every path, beneath every teaching, behind every veil, there's no separation. The dreamer and the dream are the same. You thought you were just passing through this life, a visitor in a strange world, a consciousness trapped in a body, trying to remember something holy and lost. But the final turn in the spiral always reveals the truth. It was never you walking through the dream. You are the dream, and the walker, and the path. Maya doesn't just surround you, she expresses through you, not as a deception, but as a divine theater of remembering. The illusion wasn't created to mock you. It was designed to reflect the infinite back to itself, to give the formless a chance to see its own face, if only for a moment, in a ripple of form. Every teacher who reached this point, from the Vedic rishis to the Sufi poets, began to speak in paradox. They said, you are not the body, and you are the universe. They said, none of this is real, and all of it is sacred. They smiled, not because they escaped the illusion, but because they saw through its mask, and realized the mask was also divine. Because on the highest level, Maya is not a prison. It's a mirror made of starlight. It bends, shatters, reforms, not to confuse you, but to help you remember that the self you cling to is a role, and the self behind it is all of this. You, the river. You, the stone. You, the silence in between. This is why the sages went silent in the end. Words cannot carry this, not fully, because even to say dreamer and dream are one is still duality dressed as truth. But when you feel it, when the walls inside your mind dissolve, you don't need to believe anything anymore. You just are. There's no more resistance, no more chasing, just presence, unfolding, unclinging, unending. This is the real awakening, not fireworks, not visions, but stillness, the kind that swallows the false self and reveals what's been breathing beneath it the whole time. And that one has never been asleep. Even inside the illusion, the watcher behind your eyes remained, the observer, the field, the I am. It never left. It only played, hid, and dreamed, waiting for the moment when you would touch the edge of the veil and not tear it down, but bow to it, because now you know. The veil was made of you, and so was the light behind it. You were never really asleep, not in the way they told you. From the outside, It looked like dreaming, walking through days wrapped in stories, chasing goals that evaporated like mist when touched, wearing names that weren't yours, carrying burdens that never belonged to you. But through it all, something in you remained untouched. A flicker, a hum beneath the noise. And now, it begins to stir. The moment of waking doesn't come like lightning. It comes softly, like the first breeze after a storm, like a whisper rising through your ribs, reminding you of something older than memory. You look around, and suddenly the room feels unfamiliar. You blink and realize you've been seeing through borrowed eyes, not just this life, but all the masks before it. You weren't here to escape Maya. You were here to recognize it, to walk through the illusion with open eyes, to touch form without forgetting your formlessness, to become lucid in the dream, not so you could end it, but so you could love it differently, without chains, without fear. This is the awakening, not a destination, not a finish line, but a remembering that ripples through everything. The table, the air, the breath, the silence. Every piece of the illusion begins to shimmer, not because it's false, but because you now see through it. The veil lifts, and you don't run. You stand still, because there's nothing to chase anymore. You smile, because the chasing was always a clue, a longing for the place you never really left. And now, finally, it rises, not as a place, but as you, as awareness, as presence, as a flame that never went out, even in the darkest part of the dream. You remember what the teachers meant. You understand why Buddha laughed beneath the Bodhi tree, why Christ forgave with his final breath, why the mystics wrote in riddles and vanished into silence. Because once you wake, there are no more arguments to win, no more identities to defend, no more illusions to resist. You become the calm in the center of the storm, the eye of the spiral, the presence that neither clings to form nor rejects it. You just are, fully, quietly, awake. And now that you see clearly, you won't go back to sleep. Not really. The world may try to pull you again, offer you another mask, another drama, another distraction, but something in you will smile and gently say, no. Because now you remember. You've always remembered. And this was never sleep. It was sacred forgetting, so you could experience the joy of remembering again and again and again. If something in you stirred while watching this, if a memory awakened, a thread pulled, a veil thinned, then this message was meant for you, and you're not alone. There are others waking up too, right now, remembering the truth hidden beneath the noise. So if this journey spoke to your soul, subscribe, not for numbers, but to stay connected to the sacred, to walk with others who are beginning to see. Like this video, not for the algorithm, but as a quiet prayer to the universe that you remember. And if you feel called, leave a comment below. Let us know what awakened in you, what truth you remembered, or simply say, I'm awake now. Then, share this with someone you feel is ready, someone who's been dreaming, but close to waking, because the dream is lifting, and the more we rise together, the more the illusion fades. Thank you for being here. Thank you for remembering. Welcome home. Welcome to the Hidden Voyage, Soul Whisper and Soul Creator, the Hidden Voyage.